The asteroid belt outside the human colony glowed with cold silver light, reflecting the distant stars. Kale drifted silently along the observation deck of the research vessel Orion's Reach, eyes fixed on the holographic map floating in front of him. The sensors had picked up unusual energy readings near a small asteroid cluster. Most humans on the ship saw nothing remarkable in that remote stretch of space, but Kale knew better. He had spent years living at the edges of human space, learning to read patterns others ignored. Something or someone was there. The humans aboard the vessel had only one goal: capture. The corporate-backed expedition aimed to secure alien technology, any evidence of intelligent life, and bring it back to Earth. The idea of negotiation or understanding never crossed their minds. Kale had been a part of many missions like this, but this one felt different. He sensed life in the readings, something intelligent, careful, and wary. Lyra was waiting. She moved with a quiet grace among the jagged rocks, her luminescent skin glowing faintly in the darkness of space. Her species had evolved in the cold asteroid belts, where light was rare and silence ruled. Every motion she made was deliberate. She had lived in hiding for decades, aware of humans but never expecting one to truly understand her. That understanding came only through Kale, a human who had defied his own kind to protect hers. Lyra sensed the humans before she saw them. Their ship emerged from behind a massive rock formation, cutting across the starfield like a predator. She froze, scanning their energy signatures. This was no ordinary exploration craft. It was equipped with containment units, weapons, and automated drones designed for one purpose: capture. Kale watched from the Orion's Reach, heart tightening. He had only one chance. If she was caught, there was no telling what would happen. He remembered their last encounter months ago, when she had trusted him enough to let him teach her basic human signals, ways to communicate without words. He had warned her of human greed, but now it seemed too late. The ship's harpoons fired first, slicing through the vacuum. Lyra twisted, almost invisible against the asteroid field, avoiding the mechanical arms that would ensnare her. Her instincts were sharp, but the humans had technology she could not fully counter. A net of energy trapped her for a moment. Panic flashed across her mind, but she forced it down. Survival required control. Kale activated the ship's auxiliary control panel remotely. Small diversions, minor system misfires, nothing detectable yet by the main crew. Lights flickered, a door sealed unexpectedly, a drone veered off course. Every small act was calculated to slow the humans down without alerting them directly. Lyra's breathing slowed. She recognized the patterns, signals from Kale. A human was helping her unseen, working through the ship's own systems. Her trust in him gave her strength. She allowed herself to move in a way the humans would not anticipate, slipping almost invisibly out of their nets. The main crew of the vessel was confident, shouting orders across the comms. They were experienced hunters, sure that no being could outsmart their technology. They had underestimated two things: the bond between Kale and Lyra and the creativity of a human willing to risk everything for another being. Inside the ship, Kale kept low in the maintenance tunnels. He knew every corner of the vessel, every routine of the crew. Each step he took was silent, calculated. The hum of the engines masked his presence, the faint vibrations across the metal floor providing him information. He could anticipate where the humans would be, which drones were active, and when to strike. Lyra's thoughts flickered to him, almost a silent conversation. "I can't do this alone." Kale understood immediately. "You won't have to." They moved like shadows, Lyra guiding herself through instinct and Kale providing invisible support. Every corridor, every bulkhead became a battleground of wit rather than violence. The humans were searching with predictable patterns, underestimating both her abilities and his. Hours passed. The ship's sensors had begun to show anomalies, small discrepancies Kale had engineered. Lights flickered on the bridge. A security drone malfunctioned and floated uselessly against a bulkhead. The captain cursed under his breath, unaware that every glitch was part of Kale's plan. Lyra paused near the central containment area. This was where the humans planned to imprison her fully, sealing her in a reinforced chamber with energy restraints. Her eyes scanned the area carefully. She noted the cameras, the motion sensors, the drones patrolling the halls. Every piece of technology was an obstacle, but not insurmountable. Kale's guidance was subtle now, a faint pulse in the communicator hidden in her suit. Move left, avoid that sensor, wait. Each instruction carried trust, built over months of preparation, months of secret meetings when the humans had not suspected him. Lyra followed with precision. The humans grew frustrated. Their overconfidence had begun to falter. "Where is she?" one shouted. Another tapped furiously on a console. "All readings show a life form here. Why isn't she responding?" They believed only brute force and technology mattered. They didn't understand that human cunning often surpassed any machine. Lyra reached a ventilation shaft, one that led to a maintenance bay rarely used. She paused, scanning for traps. The humans would predict escape routes. Almost everything was monitored, but Kale had already cleared the path, rerouting patrols and disabling certain cameras temporarily. As she climbed, the tension in her chest eased slightly. She was not alone. A human cared enough to risk himself, using his intelligence against his own species to ensure her safety. That knowledge strengthened her resolve. Meanwhile, on the bridge, the captain paced angrily. "She can't just vanish. Increase the patrol frequency." Crates of supplies, spare machinery, and tools created a labyrinth of cover. She moved silently, every muscle coiled with awareness. Kale's pulse guided her, left, right, behind the crate, stop. It was almost like walking blindfolded, relying entirely on trust. Finally, she reached a small docking pod. It was barely big enough for one being, but it would suffice. The pod's controls were unfamiliar to her, but she remembered what Kale had taught: observation, adaptation, improvisation. She pressed the buttons carefully, guided by instinct and memory. Kale monitored the pod systems remotely, ensuring it powered up without drawing attention. He held his breath as the small vehicle detached from the main ship and drifted toward the asteroid field. The humans noticed too late. Alarms blared. "Containment breach," the captain screamed. "All units intercept her." They had not accounted for human cunning paired with alien intelligence. Kale finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. The first stage of their plan had succeeded. Lyra was free from immediate capture, drifting among the asteroids, though not yet safe. Lyra looked back at the fading ship, her heart pounding. She knew danger was far from over, but for the first time in her life, she felt hope. A human had risked everything for her, proving that not all humans were greedy or careless. Some, like Kale, were willing to act with honor, intelligence, and courage. As the pod moved deeper into the asteroid belt, Kale remained hidden on the ship, watching for any signs of pursuit. The first victory was theirs, but the journey ahead would test both of them in ways neither could imagine. The humans on the ship were ruthless, intelligent, and desperate. But so were Kale and Lyra in a different way, a way that combined trust, ingenuity, and the unyielding desire for freedom. Lyra's luminescent skin glowed faintly as she piloted through the dark void, thinking of Kale and what awaited them. She did not yet know how far the humans would go to recapture her. She only knew one thing: she would not be alone. And with Kale, a human protector she had come to trust, she had a chance to survive. The asteroid belt swallowed her pod, shadows hiding her from all but the most advanced sensors. Somewhere behind her, the humans scrambled, their arrogance replaced by frustration and fear. Somewhere ahead, freedom awaited, but only if she and her human ally could stay one step ahead. Kale watched from the shadows, heart racing but steady. This was only the beginning. Humanity had its flaws, but it also had courage, creativity, and the drive to protect others, even when the world had already judged them. He would not fail. Lyra would not be taken. And in the cold silence of space, a bond between human and alien grew stronger, ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly before Lyra's small pod, a labyrinth of jagged rocks and drifting ice. Every shadow could hide danger, and every crevice might conceal the human hunters still aboard the Orion's reach. But for now, the immediate threat had passed. The pod drifted silently, guided by Lyra's steady hands and Kale's subtle instructions through the hidden communicator. Kale had stayed behind, blending into the ship's maintenance tunnels, invisible to the patrols. He had no desire for glory or recognition. His focus was only on Lyra, on keeping her alive, and on outsmarting humans who thought they were superior. Their arrogance would be their undoing, he thought. Inside the pod, Lyra's glowing skin pulsed faintly, a sign of her alertness. She had managed to escape immediate capture, but she was not yet safe. The ship's sensors were sophisticated. One mistake, one small signal, could lead the humans right to her. She adjusted the controls, careful not to disturb the energy balance that Kale had subtly manipulated to make her presence nearly invisible. Kale's voice whispered through the communicator. "Move left. Slow rotation. Keep low to the shadows. Don't activate any external lights." How is she disappearing? Every sensor shows her, yet she's gone. They could not anticipate the subtlety of human creativity when combined with an intimate understanding of both ship and prey. Lyra navigated through a narrow canyon of asteroids. The pod weaved carefully, using natural shadows to hide its energy signature. Every movement had been planned with Kale's guidance, but she also relied on instinct, honed over years of survival. She could sense the gravitational currents, the slight shifts in the vacuum, the faint traces of the ship's sensors bouncing off nearby rocks. "This way," Kale's voice instructed. "There's a small cluster ahead. Hide there until patrols pass. Don't leave until I tell you." She maneuvered into the asteroid cluster, finding a hollow rock formation just large enough to shield the pod. Inside, she switched off all external systems and let herself rest, if only for a moment. Her thoughts were racing. She knew the humans would not stop. They were desperate, and desperation made them dangerous. Kale, meanwhile, had begun his next task. Staying hidden in the ship was not enough. He had to keep the humans off Lyra's trail while also preparing for their next move. The ship's maintenance tunnels were complex, full of pipes, conduits, and vents. Kale moved with confidence, avoiding patrols, rerouting drones, and creating small diversions to slow the search. He triggered a minor system fault in one of the energy containment units. Lights flickered, a drone drifted harmlessly into a wall, and the crew's attention was momentarily diverted. Every small action counted. Every second Lyra had to breathe freely meant the difference between life and death. Lyra watched from her hiding place. She could see the faint glow of sensors scanning the asteroid belt. She could feel the pulse of Kale's presence guiding her movements. It was strange, a human's voice providing direction, a guide she had come to trust without question. Time passed slowly. The humans were thorough but predictable. Kale had studied their patterns for months. He knew when they would check the outer sensors, when they would sweep the corridors, and when their attention would falter. Every step he took was a calculation, every signal a subtle nudge to keep Lyra ahead of danger. Finally, Kale spoke again. "Now, move along the south edge of the cluster. You'll find a path into the shadow of that larger asteroid. I've disabled the nearby drones temporarily. You'll be safe for a short time, but stay alert." The shadows of the larger asteroid swallowed her vessel, making her nearly invisible to the distant sensors. She exhaled slowly, relief mixing with tension. Freedom was close, but the humans were relentless. Back on the ship, frustration boiled. "She can't just vanish," the captain barked. "Recalculate, sweep the cluster again." The captain's reliance on calculations and patterns made him predictable. He had become a chess player, moving several steps ahead, while the captain believed the board was only as large as the immediate pieces he could see. Lyra's pod reached the shadow of the larger asteroid. Kale guided her toward a hidden crevice, a narrow passage that opened to a natural tunnel formed from rock and ice. The tunnel was uncharted on human maps, a place humans would never think to look. Lyra entered carefully, the pod fitting just within the narrow walls. She stopped for a moment, listening. Faint hums of distant sensors reached her, but they were muted by the asteroid mass. Kale's voice came softly. "Good, you're safe for now. Stay here. I'm going to make sure they don't follow." He had two priorities: delay the humans and create a route for Lyra to reach a safe rendezvous point. The ship's corridors were filled with lights, patrols, and drones, but Kale was careful, methodical, and patient. His understanding of human behavior and ship systems gave him the advantage. Hours passed. Lyra remained hidden, listening to the distant echoes of the ship's sensors. She focused on her breathing, conserving energy, and preparing for the next stage of escape. She knew Kale was working, and that knowledge gave her strength. She was not alone in this fight. Kale had begun subtle sabotage. He rerouted power from certain sections of the ship, causing minor alarms that distracted the crew. He created false readings in the energy scanners, suggesting that Lyra's pod had moved in impossible directions. Every tactic was small, almost invisible, but together they formed a network of obstacles that slowed the humans significantly. The captain was furious. "We're losing control of the situation," he shouted. "Nothing is working." The captain's panic confirmed his calculations. Humans under pressure often became predictable in ways he could exploit. The more desperate they became, the more mistakes they made. Lyra waited in the tunnel, her glowing skin dimmed to nearly invisible levels. She could sense movement, faint vibrations in the rock walls, but they were distant. Kale's guidance had kept her safe so far. She considered her next move carefully, knowing that patience and timing were as important as speed and strength. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly around her, a maze of rocks and shadows. To any observer, it was empty, desolate, and dangerous. To Lyra, with Kale guiding her, it was a path to survival. Every turn, every crevice, every shadow was a a chance to evade capture and buy time for the next phase of escape. As night, or the illusion of night in the cold, star-filled void, enveloped the belt, Kale continued his work. He knew that the humans would escalate their efforts. They had resources, technology, and numbers, but Kale had ingenuity, patience, and the will to protect someone who had trusted him. That made all the difference. Lyra moved slowly through the tunnel, feeling the pulse of Kale's presence guiding her. She was learning to trust human creativity and foresight in ways she had never expected. Humans were capable of more than she had imagined, sometimes reckless, sometimes foolish, but also clever, brave, and capable of loyalty that transcended species. The night in the asteroid belt passed without incident. Lyra remained hidden, Kale continued his silent sabotage, and the humans scrambled in frustration, unaware of the true depth of the challenge they faced. Each passing hour strengthened the bond between human and alien, a bond built on trust, courage, and shared survival. By dawn, or what passed for dawn in the void of space, the first phase of the escape was complete. Lyra was safe, at least temporarily, hidden in a natural tunnel beyond the reach of immediate pursuit. Kale had delayed the humans long enough to ensure that she could rest and plan the next stage of their journey. In the quiet of the asteroid belt, two beings from different worlds had found a way to trust one another, to work together against impossible odds. The humans who had captured Lyra believed they were the masters of the situation, but they had underestimated ingenuity, courage, and loyalty, the very qualities that defined humanity in the vast, unforgiving void of space. Kale watched the Orion's reach fade in the distance, and Lyra prepared for what lay ahead. This was only the beginning. The humans would not give up, and neither would Kale or Lyra. Together, they would face challenges no one had predicted, using intelligence, strategy, and trust as their weapons. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of uncertainty, but for the first time, Lyra felt hope. Humans could be unpredictable, reckless, and greedy, but they could also be brilliant, loyal, and courageous. Kale was proof, and as long as he was at her side, Lyra believed they could survive anything the universe threw at them. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly, an ocean of jagged rocks and drifting ice, and Lyra's small pod glided silently through it. The shadowy corridors of the natural tunnels offered temporary refuge, but she could not stay hidden forever. The humans aboard the Orion's reach were relentless, and Kale knew that delaying them could only buy limited time. The real challenge was coming: escape, survive, and turn the tables on those who believed they were in control. Kale had spent the last hours observing the ship's patrol patterns. He had exploited every weakness, sabotaged sensors, rerouted drones, and created false energy signals that suggested Lyra had gone in impossible directions. Every action was a chess move, and now the real game was about to begin. "Listen carefully," Kale's voice whispered through the hidden communicator. "You will encounter a drone patrol ahead. It is programmed to detect energy signatures. I have created a diversion, but you must move slowly and stay low. Any sudden movement could trigger an alarm." Her species was adapted to this environment, able to sense subtle shifts in gravity, microcurrents, and energy. With Kale's guidance, she could blend those instincts with human strategies, making her a nearly invisible target. Ahead, a drone floated like a silent sentinel, its sensors scanning the void. Lyra slowed, following Kale's instructions. The drone's light swept across her pod, and for a moment her pulse quickened. Then, as Kale had predicted, the drone veered off toward the false signal, giving her a clear path. "You're clear," Kale said. "Move to the next crevice. There is a natural tunnel there. I've rerouted power, so sensors will be offline for just enough time." The humans would adapt, escalate, and pursue relentlessly. Inside the Orion's reach, frustration boiled. The captain slammed his fist against a console. "How is she doing this? Every time we track her, she disappears. Increase scanning power and sweep the asteroid field again. It's almost as if someone is manipulating the systems." He had become the unseen variable in their calculations, a human with knowledge of both ship and prey. Lyra moved deeper into the asteroid field, her pod weaving between jagged rocks and ice formations. Each movement was deliberate, designed to mask her energy signature. Kale's guidance was constant, subtle nudges in timing and direction, helping her avoid patrols and drones. The bond between them had strengthened through necessity and trust. Lyra had never expected to rely on a human in this way, yet here she was, alive because of him. Suddenly, a faint tremor ran through the asteroid beneath her pod. Sensors from the Orion's Reach had detected the anomaly, and a new wave of drones was deployed. Lyra's hands moved faster, following Kale's rapid instructions. He had predicted this move. Turn sharply left, use the ice formation to hide. I've rerouted the drone's patrol path to the south. You're almost at the rendezvous point, but there's one more obstacle. A larger patrol is coming through the main corridor. You will need to use the micro-caves to evade them. Her species could navigate them easily, but the human-designed drones would get stuck or fail to detect her. She entered the first cave, the pod fitting perfectly, and paused to allow the patrol to pass. The drones passed overhead, their lights flickering against the walls. Lyra held her breath, the sound of machinery reverberating faintly through the stone. She waited until they were gone, then moved to the next cave, repeating the process with careful precision. Kale monitored every move from the shadows of the ship. He had created multiple diversions, rerouted patrols, and disabled sections of the drone's programming. Every action slowed the humans, buying Lyra precious minutes. Hours passed, and the tension grew. Lyra's muscles ached from the constant adjustments, but her mind remained sharp. She was alive because of Kale, but she was also proving her own resourcefulness. Her species, abilities, combined with human ingenuity, created an unstoppable combination. The humans aboard the ship were beginning to suspect something extraordinary. "She's not just escaping," one officer muttered. "Someone is helping her, but who?" The humans were close, their frustration evident in every movement. Kale's instructions came rapidly. "Now, use the gravitational pull of that asteroid to slip past. The patrol will overshoot. I've prepared a small gap in the sensors for you." For the first time, she allowed herself a brief sense of relief. Freedom was near, but she knew it was temporary. The humans would continue to hunt, adapt, and escalate their pursuit. Kale prepared for the next phase. He needed to create a more permanent distraction, one that would allow Lyra to reach a safer location beyond the immediate asteroid belt. He accessed the ship's auxiliary systems, rerouting power and triggering minor faults to draw the humans' attention elsewhere. Lights flickered, alarms sounded, and drones veered off course. The humans were distracted, searching in the wrong direction, while Lyra moved closer to safety. Lyra's pod entered a larger cavern, the walls of ice and rock providing natural shielding. Kale guided her through the final approach to the rendezvous point, a hidden station he had prepared in advance. It was equipped with supplies, energy sources, and basic repairs. The station was small, but it would suffice for her to rest and plan the next phase of escape. As she docked, Lyra's luminescent skin dimmed completely, blending with the shadows. She exhaled slowly, her body trembling from the adrenaline. Kale's voice came softly. "You made it. Rest now. I'll handle the rest." He knew the humans would not give up easily. Their arrogance and greed made them persistent. But he had proven that human ingenuity, patience, and courage could counter even the most advanced technology. The night in the asteroid belt passed quietly. Lyra rested, conserving energy and preparing for the next stage. Kale continued his silent work, manipulating systems, creating false signals, and ensuring that the humans remained confused and misdirected. By dawn, or what passed for dawn in the void of space, the first stage of their strategy was complete. Lyra was safe, for now, hidden in a station deep within the asteroid belt. Kale had delayed the humans, buying her time and creating a foundation for their next moves. Lyra's thoughts returned to Kale. She had never expected a human to risk so much for her, to use intelligence, creativity, and courage in ways that outmatched the very species that sought to capture her. Humans could be reckless, greedy, and dangerous, but they could also be brilliant, loyal, and courageous. Kale embodied the best of humanity. Kale watched the Orion's Reach from the shadows, satisfied with the results but aware that the danger was far from over. The humans would not give up, and neither would he. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger through adversity, trust, and shared ingenuity. Lyra rested, but her mind was active, planning the next phase of escape. She would not allow herself to be captured again, and she would not let the humans exploit her or her species. With Kale as her protector, she had a chance to survive, to fight back, and to prove that intelligence and courage could triumph over greed and arrogance. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly around them, a maze of shadows and stone. The humans believed they controlled the situation, but they had underestimated two things: Lyra's abilities and Kale's ingenuity. Together, they had become an unpredictable force, capable of outsmarting even the most advanced technology. As the day ended in the silent void, Lyra and Kale prepared for the next stage. The humans would escalate, but so would they. Every obstacle, every challenge, and every threat would be met with creativity, courage, and trust. And in the quiet, frozen expanse of space, a human and an alien stood together, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store. Lyra had spent the night resting in the hidden station, her body weary from hours of constant vigilance, but her mind was sharp and alert. Every movement, every sound outside the station reminded her that the humans aboard the Orion's Reach would not give up easily. Kale's guidance had brought her this far, but the real challenge awaited, confronting the humans and ensuring they could no longer threaten her or her people. Kale had spent the hours after her docking preparing. He accessed the ship's auxiliary systems, subtly rerouting power and creating small, almost imperceptible faults that would draw the crew's attention away from Lyra. Every diversion was carefully timed, each one intended to slow the humans, confuse them, and allow her to plan the next move. "You need to move soon," Kale whispered through the hidden communicator. "They're recalibrating sensors and preparing a direct sweep of the asteroid belt. If you stay here much longer, they will find you." Her fingers moved over the pod's controls, checking energy levels, propulsion systems, and shield stability. Everything was functioning perfectly. She had learned from Kale that preparation and observation were as important as speed and strength. She had no intention of leaving this station without a plan. "Take the southern exit," Kale instructed. "I've mapped a path that avoids all current patrols. It's tight, but it will get you to a natural crevice where we can meet again. Move slowly, stay close to the rocks, and avoid creating any energy signatures." The larger rocks provided cover, masking her movements from distant sensors. Every turn was deliberate, every movement calculated. She felt a strange sense of calm, even in the midst of danger. Kale's presence, though invisible, gave her confidence. Meanwhile, aboard the Orion's Reach, frustration and anger had reached new heights. The captain pounded his fist against the console. "She can't keep disappearing like this. Increase scanning range and focus all drones in the southern corridor. Whoever is helping her will pay for this." Lyra navigated the asteroid belt carefully. The shadows of the rocks provided perfect cover, but she was aware that the humans were persistent. Every moment of freedom counted, and mistakes could cost her everything. She adjusted the pod's trajectory, following Kale's subtle instructions, slipping past patrol drones and sensors. Hours passed as the pursuit continued. The humans were relentless, but Kale's diversions had kept them off balance. Lights flickered, drones veered off course, and false signals drew attention away from Lyra. She had learned to move silently, conserve energy, and rely on instinct. Her species' abilities gave her an edge, but Kale's guidance ensured she could survive against human technology and strategy. Finally, she reached a natural crevice, a narrow space formed between two massive asteroids. The shadows were deep, the rocks dense enough to block even the most sensitive sensors. She paused, checking the pod systems and her surroundings. This was the rendezvous point Kale had prepared, a place where they could regroup and plan the next phase. "You made it," Kale said softly. "I've created a distraction aboard the ship. They'll be focused elsewhere for the next few hours. You have time, but not much." Kale had another plan, one that would allow them to confront the humans directly and turn the situation in their favor. He had studied the ship's layout, the routines of the crew, and the capabilities of their technology. He understood their arrogance, their reliance on brute force, and their predictable behavior, and he knew how to use it against them. "You need to be ready for confrontation," Kale said. "They'll try to corner you, but we can outsmart them. I've prepared a route that will let us control the situation. Follow my instructions exactly." Her species had survived by being cautious and observant, but humans brought a different kind of advantage: creativity, courage, and an understanding of strategy that could turn even impossible situations in their favor. As they approached the first stage of the plan, Kale monitored the ship closely. He had triggered a series of diversions, causing alarms, sensor malfunctions, and minor system errors. The crew of the Orion's Reach was scrambling, trying to understand why Lyra kept slipping through their grasp. Every movement was monitored, every strategy countered by Kale's subtle interference. Lyra glided her pod along the asteroid's surfaces, moving carefully, silently, and deliberately. She could feel the presence of Kale guiding her, almost like a shadow beside her. The humans had no idea that they were being manipulated at every turn. Finally, they reached a larger asteroid, one that Kale had chosen as the point for direct confrontation. He had prepared a trap, not to harm Lyra, but to force the humans into a position where they could be controlled. The asteroid had natural formations that could shield them, and Kale had rerouted energy signals to create false readings. Lyra entered the formation cautiously. The shadows were deep, the rocks dense, and the path narrow. Kale's instructions guided her through every turn, every crevice. She moved with precision, her instincts heightened, her mind focused. The humans appeared, expecting an easy capture. Their drones scanned the area, their weapons ready, confident that they had trapped Lyra, but Kale had anticipated their moves. He had created false signals, diverted patrols, and prepared the terrain. The humans were walking into a controlled situation. Lyra emerged from the shadows at the precise moment Kale had planned. The humans were momentarily blinded by the unexpected appearance, their confidence shattered. Kale activated a subtle diversion, causing one of the drones to malfunction and drift into the group. Panic spread among the crew, and they scrambled to regain control. Lyra remained calm, guided by Kale's instructions. She moved quickly, positioning herself to avoid detection while still being able to observe the humans. Her species' abilities allowed her to manipulate minor energy currents, creating small disturbances that further confused the crew. Kale continued to orchestrate the situation from afar, manipulating the ship systems, creating false readings, and drawing the humans' attention away from Lyra. The humans were skilled, but their reliance on technology and predictable behavior made them vulnerable. Kale's human ingenuity turned the tables, allowing Lyra to control the engagement without direct confrontation. Hours passed as the humans tried to adapt. Every attempt to capture Lyra was countered by Kale's subtle manipulations and her own abilities. The crew grew frustrated, their confidence eroding. They had expected an easy victory, but they were facing a combination of intelligence, strategy, and courage they had not anticipated. Finally, Kale instructed Lyra to move to the final position. The natural formations provided cover and a strategic advantage. From this position, they could observe the humans, anticipate their moves, and plan the next phase of escape. Lyra followed the instructions precisely, her movements controlled, deliberate, and silent. The humans were trapped in a mental and technological maze. Their arrogance had led them to believe they were in control, but Kale and Lyra had turned the situation entirely. The humans were reacting to moves they could not predict, forced into positions where their actions were limited. Lyra paused, observing the crew through the gaps in the asteroid formations. She could see their confusion, their frustration, and their desperation. For the first time, she realized that the humans were not invincible, that intelligence, strategy, and loyalty could overcome even the most advanced technology. Kale's voice came softly. "You've done well. Stay in position. Let them come to you. We control this encounter now." The humans had expected to dominate, but they had underestimated the combination of human ingenuity and her own abilities. The asteroid belt, once a place of danger and uncertainty, had become a strategic advantage. Kale's knowledge of the ship, the humans' behavior, and the terrain allowed them to turn the pursuit into a controlled engagement. Lyra's species' abilities complemented Kale's strategies, creating a partnership that the humans could not anticipate. As the humans continued to search, their frustration grew. Every movement they made was anticipated, every attempt countered. Kale's diversions and Lyra's skill had created a situation where the humans were effectively trapped in a game they could not win. The day ended in the silent void of space. Lyra remained hidden, observing the humans, conserving energy, and preparing for the next stage. Kale continued his work, manipulating systems, creating diversions, and ensuring that the humans remained misdirected. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of hope that went beyond mere survival. With Kale as her protector, they could face the humans, counter their moves, and turn the situation in their favor. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger, forged in the tension of pursuit, the precision of strategy, and the shared goal of survival. In the silent, frozen expanse of the asteroid belt, two beings from different worlds had created a partnership based on trust, intelligence, and courage. The humans aboard the Orion's Reach had expected an easy capture, but they had underestimated the resilience, creativity, and determination that defined humanity in its best moments. Lyra and Kale were not just surviving. They were shaping the encounter, controlling the engagement, and preparing for a confrontation that would define the rest of their journey. And as the asteroid belt stretched endlessly around them, the humans realized, too late, that they were no longer in control. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly, silent and cold, but Lyra no longer felt fear. She had spent days hiding, evading, and surviving, guided by Kale's careful instructions. The humans aboard the Orion's Reach had grown desperate, their arrogance replaced by confusion and panic. For the first time, they realized that their prize, the alien woman, was not helpless, and that the human who protected her was capable of outsmarting them at every turn. Kale's voice came softly through the hidden communicator. "You're approaching the final stage. The humans are regrouping and preparing a direct assault. I've created a route for you, but you need to be ready. This will not be easy." Her species' abilities complemented Kale's strategies, allowing her to blend instinct with calculated maneuvers. She had learned to rely on him, but she had also grown confident in her own skill. "Stay calm," Kale continued. "Follow the route exactly. There's a natural canyon ahead where we can force them to confront us. From there, we control the engagement. Remember, speed alone won't win this. It's timing, positioning, and strategy." One mistake could alert the humans and undo everything they had achieved. A faint hum reached her ears, drones scanning the area, energy sensors sweeping for any sign of her presence. Lyra slowed, moving in perfect synchronization with Kale's instructions. He had rerouted power aboard the Orion's Reach, creating multiple false signals. The drones followed decoys, allowing her to move undetected. "Almost there," Kale whispered. "Use the canyon ahead. The formations will shield you and force the humans into a predictable path. From there, we can control everything." She paused, observing the patrol drones and the occasional energy sweep. The humans were persistent, but Kale had predicted their every move. Suddenly, a bright light swept across the canyon. A drone had deviated from the pattern, approaching too closely. Lyra adjusted her pod instantly, drifting behind a protruding rock. Her luminescent skin dimmed almost completely, and the drone passed without detecting her. She exhaled, steadying herself. "Good," Kale said. "Keep moving. The humans are converging, but their approach is predictable. We'll use that against them." She could see the humans in the distance, their ship small but formidable, scanning with advanced sensors and weapons. Their confidence had waned, replaced by tension and uncertainty. They were walking into a trap. Kale continued his work aboard the Orion's Reach, manipulating the ship systems, rerouting drones, and creating diversions. Every false alarm, every sensor glitch, every minor system fault kept the humans off balance. They were skilled and determined, but Kale's ingenuity and Lyra's abilities created a combination they could not anticipate. The humans tried to regroup, sending multiple drones to sweep the canyon. Lyra remained hidden, watching as they fell into Kale's carefully orchestrated pattern. One by one, drones encountered false signals, became trapped in the asteroid formations, or malfunctioned due to Kale's subtle sabotage. Panic spread among the crew. "Why is this happening? Why can't we find her?" the captain shouted. "Increase scanning power, focus everything on the canyon." He knew exactly how the humans would respond. Their desperation made them predictable, and that predictability was their weakness. Lyra's pod moved deeper into the canyon. The shadows thickened, the walls of rock and ice providing perfect cover. She could feel the subtle vibrations of approaching drones and distant ships. Every movement was precise, calculated, and silent. She had learned to trust Kale completely, relying on his instructions to navigate the dangerous environment. Suddenly, an energy sweep lit up the canyon, reflecting off the walls. Lyra adjusted instantly, drifting into a narrow crevice. The light passed, and she continued, moving closer to the strategic point Kale had prepared. "You're almost at the position," Kale said. "From here, we force them to confront us. They will be predictable. We control everything. Stay calm and follow my instructions." Their ships and drones filled the outer areas, scanning and preparing to strike. Confidence had been replaced by caution, but their weapons were ready, and their sensors were sharp. Kale had anticipated their strategy, however, and every move they made fell into his carefully constructed plan. Lyra reached the strategic point, a narrow formation where she could observe and manipulate the humans' movements. Kale's instructions guided her every action. "Wait for my signal. When the first ship enters the canyon, use the energy currents to disrupt their sensors. I've prepared a short circuit in their drones. Timing is everything." The first human ship entered the canyon, scanning for her. At Kale's signal, Lyra triggered the energy currents, subtly interfering with the ship's systems. The sensors malfunctioned, drones became disoriented, and the humans' confidence wavered. "Now," Kale whispered. "Move forward, force them into the trap." Hours passed as Lyra and Kale orchestrated the final stage. The humans tried every tactic, every pattern, every adjustment, but Kale's subtle manipulations and Lyra's abilities kept them off balance. Their frustration grew, and their confidence eroded. They had expected an easy capture, but they were facing a combination of strategy, intelligence, and courage they had not anticipated. Finally, Lyra reached the final point of the canyon, where Kale had prepared a natural escape route. The humans were trapped in predictable paths, forced to confront the situation on Kale's terms. Lyra's pod glided into the hidden crevice, and she paused, observing the humans' frustration and confusion. Kale's voice came softly. "We control the situation now. They can't reach you without falling into the traps we've set. From here, you can move safely to the rendezvous point beyond the asteroid belt." She had survived not just because of her abilities, but because of a human who had risked everything to protect her. The humans aboard the Orion's Reach realized too late that they had been outmaneuvered. Their systems had been sabotaged, their drones misdirected, and their confidence shattered. They had underestimated both human creativity and Lyra's intelligence. Kale guided her through the final stretch, the pod moving smoothly through the shadows. The asteroid belt's natural formations provided cover, and the human's path was controlled entirely by Kale's strategies. Lyra emerged into a safe zone, a hidden station beyond the belt, stocked with supplies and energy sources. "You made it," Kale said, relief evident in his voice. "You're safe now, at least for the moment. We've forced the humans into positions where they can't interfere further. Together, we made this work." The Orion's Reach continued to drift in the distance, its crew frustrated and defeated. They had underestimated the human spirit and the bond between Lyra and her protector. Their arrogance had led to failure, and now they were forced to retreat, reconsider, and accept that some challenges could not be solved by brute force alone. Lyra and Kale prepared for the next phase, returning to her people and establishing a connection between humans and her species. They had survived the humans' pursuit, outsmarted advanced technology, and proven that courage, strategy, and loyalty could overcome even the most formidable adversaries. The asteroid belt was vast, silent, and still, but within its shadows, a human and an alien stood victorious. They had faced impossible odds, relied on ingenuity and trust, and survived. And in that moment, Lyra realized that the galaxy was full of danger, but also full of possibilities. With Kale by her side, she had a chance to survive, to protect her species, and to prove that humans at their best were capable of greatness. Together, they would face whatever the universe had in store, guided by intelligence, courage, and an unbreakable bond of trust. The stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and distant, but Lyra no longer felt fear. She had survived. She had won. And with a human protector who had risked everything for her, she was ready to face the future.